The current Republican vice president candidate seeks to eliminate no-fault divorce. No-fault divorce allows a woman to divorce a man without question. This will force women to stay in abusive relationships that often end up in death for the woman and can swallow up the children as well. This is forced subjugation, slavery, and violence. If history has taught us anything about what will follow, it is that what happens in America has a ripple effect across the world. If America no longer protects a woman's right in health care, it won't be long before other parts of the world follow, one way or another. Are you navigating the choppy waters of perimenopause? You're not alone, and I've got something that might be your lifeline. Let me introduce my new product, Estro Balance Mastery. This isn't just another supplement, it is a perimenopausal powerhouse. Estro Balance Mastery is a medical-grade formula designed by me to support you through the transitional phase. Let's break down these powerful ingredients and how they work for perimenopause. DIM and Chrysin are your dynamic duo for managing erratic estrogen levels that cause hot flashes and night sweats and mood swings. If you're feeling foggy, the flaxseed extract is rich in lignans that support cognitive function and help clear that perimenopausal brain fog. And ladies, if those night sweats are killing your sleep, the green tea extract and broccoli sprout compounds work together to help regulate body temperature. But that's not all. Milk thistle supports your liver, which is crucial for hormone metabolism during this time. The best part is it's 2 capsules a day, and you're giving your body the support it needs to navigate perimenopause with grace. It's made in an FDA USA inspected facility, and you know you're getting quality ingredients. All you've got to do is head over to metabolicblueprint.com/pod10, and that's metabolicblueprint.com/pod10 to get 10% off your first bottle. That's right, it's 10% off just to get started on your journey to a smoother perimenopause. Welcome back to Menopause Mastery on the last few days of October, which is Menopause Awareness Month. Today's podcast is going to be a bit different. I'm still going to address issues that are important to us as women. I'm going to touch on a lot of data that's going to help you understand what I'm discussing, though it's going to be a little different and a little less biochemical in nature. You're still going to have takeaways for you to incorporate and read more about on your own, depending on your own situation. And we're still going to have a pretty strong call to action at the end that you will want to do. So if you are in my generation, Generation X, as many of my listeners are, you grew up as a woman and a young girl watching things like Working Girl and 9 to 5 on the big screen. You probably listened to I Am Woman, Hear Me Roar. You may have witnessed Gloria Steinem burning her bra. You cheered when Sandra O'Connor was appointed to the Supreme Court. All great memories of women breaking barriers, being heard, being tested and winning, proving people wrong. Our entire adult lives up to this point were lived in a time of women's empowerment and body autonomy of sorts. But those days are behind us now. Those times were glorious, but they are coming to an end right before our eyes. The progress made is being eroded in big and small chunks almost daily. And it's not just in the courts. Rights are being removed, denied, altered to keep women down. That also needs to raise an alarm. It is the institutionalization of misogyny and misogynistic practices and beliefs that threaten us all. It is the cultural flippancy of violence toward women in act and in word that is the most worrisome and more worrisome than ever. It is the increased incidents in physical violence that foes underreport or dismissed by the authorities, sworn to protect us, or laughed off with misogynistic glee online. It is the idolization of hyper-masculine abusers, predators, traffickers, influence, and men and women in power that cause us concern. We are objectified like never before. We are dismissed and counted out at alarming rates. We are asked to compromise ourselves, our beliefs, our morals, our dreams. We are denied life-saving medical care by those in charge, who are beholden to antiquated ideology and belief structures that force women into a corner. We are assaulted, beaten, murdered simply because we are women. We are raped during wars all over the globe. An estimated 65,000 pregnancies a year occur in America because of rape. 65,000 every year due to rape. We are denied access to business funding, easily accessible to male counterparts. In America, we have men running for office, for president and vice president, who believe women are equal to men in any form or fashion, and are proud to proclaim that we aren't equal at all. They bragged about sexual assault. They have called women who do not have children, with no distinction made between choosing to do so and a medical reason that prohibits it, as sad, pathetic, and lonely, while denying pregnant women health care that would save their lives due to adherence to religious dogma. They and their supporters use the same terms to describe women as autocrats used to describe the undesirables in their countries who have become victims of genocide. Words like pig, dog, dehumanizing terms. Today's episode is a conversation to prepare you for war, because war is already here, and I want you to be angry, informed, and ready to fight like your life and livelihood depends on it, because it does. And your daughters' and granddaughters' livelihood definitely depends on it. We didn't ask for war. War was declared on us, the female of the species. This isn't going to be a fun day. This is going to be a hard day. But it's going to be, in the end, a glorious day, because we will begin to right some of these wrongs. Those who seek to dismiss us, demoralize us, marginalize us, kill us, rape us, turn us into nothing more than a broodmare for their use, like any other piece of property, are in for a shock. That same tenacity, resourcefulness, determination, physical strength, mental toughness, and intelligence that make us mothers, business owners, soldiers, lawyers, doctors, law enforcement officers will be harnessed to defeat our greatest threat in some time, the global cabal of men who seek to make women nothing more than a piece of property. We women are the ones counted on, while also being the ones counted out. If you think that your worth, your value, your relevance cannot be eroded away any further, I'm here to tell you that it can and most certainly will, unless starting today, you fight for your life, your livelihood, your future, for yourself and the women in this country. This is not hyperbole. Your life truly depends on it. Lest we forget, the founding fathers first had mothers. Everyone on this planet owes their life to a woman. Mankind needs women. And what your forefathers fought for and fought over generations has begun to unravel at lightning speed. Our foremothers fought diligently to bring our lives into a better place, and it is eroding rapidly. What is happening to women is a global erosion of rights, access, acceptance, worth, and value. The American ideas of freedom, liberty, tradition, history, and patriotism has always been defined by men. The right to self-determination, the right to health and health care, the right to access the halls of power, the right to a seat in the boardroom. All those rules were set up and discerned by men for men. Here's the truth. Men, especially old white men and mediocre middle-aged men, like the ones in charge of many powerful institutions in America today, are the minority. That demographic is as obsolete as the station wagon or the cordless lion line. But through manipulation, deception, gerrymandering, monetary influence, they have remained in power. I get it. I don't want to feel left out either. But women have always been left out, and the time has come to change that. As I say this, many of you are wishing things were better, wishing things hadn't gotten so bad, wishing this, wishing that. As they say in Texas, a wish in one hand and shit in the other. See which one fills up first. I've chosen to approach this as a threat assessment in 3 areas. I will address the institutional and cultural threats, the financial threats, and the physical threats. The physical threats are what most women are accustomed to hearing about, accustomed to being concerned about, rightfully so, as those threats can cost us our lives. However, threat, big or small, seemingly innocuous, or clearly venomous, needs to be brought to light. Bringing these to light are why we are here today. These are the areas, not only the areas women need to be aware of and informed about and acting in to be better, to prevent further damage, but they are the 3 of the biggest. Please use today as a launch pad to become informed, armed, and aware that your life and livelihood and your family are under attack. So let's take a minute to look back at history and see how it relates to today. Things people have fought for over millennia: freedom, sovereignty, food, resources, safety, security, human rights, are rarely handed out by those in charge. Just look at European colonialism and what was done to indigenous populations in the name of the crown or in the name of the god. These things are fought for, bled for, sacrificed for. That's where we are today. Even the founding fathers of this nation created founding documents that ignored women the way they ignored slaves they brought here involuntary to work for them. Women were not that much better off. And it was done on purpose. It took amendments, laws, decrees over the next 240 years to grant women, begrudgingly in many cases, rights, privileges, and equality to men deemed granted to them by God. These same rights are now under attack as a form of new breed of masters that are intentionally being undone, reversed, and removed at alarming rates to ensure women remain less than, just as they did recently, as early and as late as the 20th century, and remain so forever. A candidate for president was caught on tape talking about how you can do anything you want to a woman when you are a star. You can grab her by the pussy. And yet, he was still elected. He's called women dogs and pigs. His supporters either agree with this or are tolerant of it or are not concerned about it to let it affect their support of him and the others in his party. This kind of dehumanizing language serves to make women easier targets for oppression, violence, restraint, and control because they are then viewed as less than. This is the same language Goebbels used, Jews in Germany, during the Nazi democratic rise to power. In education, women are dismissed, ignored, forgotten. When women and girls are educated, they know their rights, what to expect and what to demand. Educated women and girls can get the jobs, can take care of their families, with or without men. Men don't like being left out. That's why, through the denial of education, failing to fund child care services in schools, and other anti-women initiatives, they are able to maintain control over women. Libraries are being defunded, book bans are commonplace. All these things further erode the rich history and rich women's history have had over the last century. When women and girls are educated, societies flourish and prosper. When women are denied education, society stagnates. Just look at what educated and critically thinking, inventive women who want to better the world have done. This is literally a fraction of the list. It would take me hours to list all of the women that I can think of that have made an impact on the world. How many of you know the women I'm listing right here or learned about them in school? Mary Anderson invented the windshield wiper. Grace Hopper created the first compiler for computer languages. Dr. Ann Tsukimoto invented stem cell isolation and holds 12 patents related to circulatory system science in cancer patients. Stephanie Kwolek invented Kevlar. Dr. Shirley Ann Jackson invented caller ID. Ann Connolly invented the fire escape. Letitia Greer invented the medical syringe. Florence Parapart invented the electric refrigerator. Elizabeth Maggie invented the board game Monopoly. And lest us forget, Hedy Lamarr invented Wi-Fi. The list goes on and on. Even in medical research, women have been ignored and neglected. Prior to the 1980s, women were not included in clinical trials or research studies to develop treatments to help people who are sick. Only in 1986 did the NIH establish a policy to encourage research to include women in studies. But even then, it was encouraged, not a mandate for inclusion. The reason often cited was that women's hormones fluctuate, women were unable to handle the rigors of studies, and it also made the testing unpredictable, confusing, and difficult. What they are really saying is that they don't truly care enough about women to understand and work through something as complicated as getting a few more statistical data points to assess so that it may help all women and all men, not just men. In 1993, the FDA reversed a 1977 ruling tied to the dangers of thalidomide at the time, requiring women to be included in research. And in 1994, the FDA established the Office of Women's Health to include women in clinical trials. 1993. What all this is telling us is that we have only been studied for about the last 30 years. Last 30 years that we've even been included. And we are already facing an elimination of inclusion, access, and support from the medical community. Today, in 2022, the last data that's available, 9 to 10% of funding of research goes to women's health. We make up half, if not slightly more than half, according to a recent study. Less than 1.83% of perimenopause and menopausal women in America are receiving appropriate medical treatment with bioidentical hormone therapy, despite the fact that has been standard of care from the 1950s until 2002 and the failed epically inappropriate and ineffective study called the Women's Health Study. And less than 20% of medical schools have training for menopause. This includes assumed medical specialty of OB-GYN, the bastion of medical health. This is a failed medical system. Despite the lack of respect, the American medical community for the 2022, 23, and 24 academic year, 55% of the people entering medical school are women. Political leaders actively have undermined efforts to advance women's health research and policy, particularly in areas uniquely affecting women, such as maternal health, breast cancer, and reproductive health services. By sidelining scientific research and evidence-based policies in favor of ideological agendas, they jeopardize not just the present well-being of women, but future advancements in healthcare crucial for women's lives. This deliberate obstruction reveals a chilling indifference to the health challenges and disparities women face, further entrenching gender inequalities in healthcare access and outcomes. Inactivity and passivity towards women is just another destructive tool. Ignoring women, what women need, and what women deserve, what women have earned, has disastrous effects on the women, children, and their families. Let's look at a recent cultural example of demonizing women. A New Line magazine article in June of 2022 entitled "The American War on Women" addresses the inception of a word and a term termed as Karen. The Karen term emerged in 2021 for entitled women behaving badly in a classless, privileged manner. Classless, privileged behavior is something men do every damn day and have done for ages. There are examples every day. You hear it every day. And if you just hit the social media and the web, you see it every day. Many of these men are heroes to other men for their masculinity, alpha male posturing, and the ability to get what they want, when they want, how they feel, and they deserve it at the expense of others. Yet, look how easily it became negatively associated with the female of the species. Racist, classist. I'm not condoning the behavior of these people, not by any stretch. But I have to point out how behaviors that, when done every day for centuries by men, within months directly associated with women, the ease in which women are demonized for doing what seemingly has been done for forever by men is shocking threat. And they are retaliating. From an article in The Guardian entitled "Disaster Patriarchy: How the Pandemic Has Unleashed a War on Women," the author rightly points out and makes the case for this new threat. Similar to capitalism, where capitalists use disaster to impose measures they could never accomplish during normal times to generate more profit, disaster patriarchy is a parallel and complementary process where men exploit a crisis to reassert control and dominance and rapidly erase hard-earned women's rights. In disaster patriarchy, women lose their safety, their economic power, their autonomy, their education, and they are pushed out to the front lines, unprotected, to be sacrificed. In 2022, the state of Tennessee tried to pass legislation that would set no basement age limit for couples to marry, opening up the door to legally marrying children younger than the current state minimum of 17. Let's be clear. This is intended to allow a man to marry a girl, a small child, at any age. 2022. Seriously. Even the concept of virginity is a cultural construct created by men to make women who have already had intercourse be perceived as less valuable, less desirable, worthless. I'd like to know who the men are supposed to sow their loins with if women are supposed to stay a virgin. More rules made up about women to keep them under a man's thumb. In the U.S., more than 5 million women's jobs were lost during the pandemic and November 2020. Because much of the women's work required physical contact with the public. Restaurants, stores, childcare, healthcare settings, theirs were the jobs that were first to go. Those who were able to keep their jobs were often frontline workers whose position had put them in great danger. Some 77% of hospital workers and 74% of school staff are women. Even then, the lack of childcare options left many women unable to return to their jobs. Having children does not have this effect for men. The rate of unemployment for Black and Latina women was higher before the virus, and now it's even worse. When women are put under great financial pressures, their rights rapidly erode. With the economic crisis created by COVID, sex and labor trafficking are again on the rise. There are more people in slavery and sexual slavery than ever before in history. Young women who struggle to pay their rent are also even being preyed on by the landlords in a process known as sex extortion. Social norms that put heavy caregiving burden on women and girls remain likely to make their physical and mental health suffer. These structures also impede access to education, damage livelihoods, and strip away sources of support. If you've listened to me for a while, in that case, you are aware of my stance on the stresses of women in America and what we're under, the demands of work, raising children, caring for an ailing parent or parents, while men largely are off the hook or obligated only on mommy's day out. Just look at how nurses, who were predominantly women, were treated during the U.S. pandemic, having to use single-use masks for weeks, trash bags as gowns, brutal 12-hour shifts that often expanded into 16 and 18 hours, and even isolation from other human interaction. COVID has revealed the fact that we live in two incompatible ideals when it comes to women. The first is that women are essential to every aspect of life and our survival as a species. The second is that women can be easily violated, sacrificed, and erased. This duality that patriarchy has slashed into the fabric of all of our existence. So ratified in August 18th, 1920, the 19th Amendment gave women the right to vote. That means the men who were in charge found 18 things more important to correct than equal rights for their mothers, wives, sisters, and daughters. This tells you all you need to know. These women fought and risked their lives and livelihoods to ensure all women had the same voting rights as men. Again, the Founding Fathers could have easily addressed this matter in the original founding documents had they thought about women as anything more than a broodmare for their children. But since these same Founding Fathers were virtually all slave owners, no one should be surprised that they valued their own comfort, status, privilege, and power and wealth over the rights and freedoms of other human beings living in their homes and on their properties. Remember these names. These are just some of the leaders of the suffragist movement that gave women the right to access to the ballot box. Elizabeth Cady Stanton, Sojourner Truth, Susan Anthony, Alice Pauls, Ida Wells. The normalization and amplification of misogynistic rhetoric and behaviors of high-profile male figures not only degrades the public discourse, but also emboldens a culture of sexism, discrimination, setting back the struggles for equality and respect. So I want to move on to financial threats that affect women. I believe these get overlooked. Even though women are not well represented in business, government, and other areas where commerce is determined, voted on, and advanced, women still have tremendous impact on the financial strength of the United States. The U.S. economy is driven by retail. That is why the Christmas and holiday season is so important. Retail days like Black Friday, tax-free weekends for back to school, and daily retail expenditures is largely done on the backs of decisions made by women. Are you aware that women in the home make up 85% of all household buying decisions in the United States? Have you ever thought about the impact as little as 10% of women making decisions could have in shifting the way business is done or the way a particular business is done? Consider just a couple examples from the food world. Alar, an additive that was sprayed on food to keep it from rotting so quickly, was banned in 1989 by the FDA because it was determined to be a threat to public health. It was moms, led by the celebrity voice of Meryl Streep, that worked to get this dangerous product banned. Or, more recently, RBST, a bovine growth hormone given to cattle to increase milk production. It has been banned in most countries, but not the U.S. Despite that, there was such an outcry from consumers in America driven by women in the home making decisions that many producers stopped using it in their cattle and the dairy products they produce because of its link to mastitis and reduced fertility. Do not underestimate yourself. I have read that if only 10% of moms refuse to have their children play peewee football because of the long-term dangers of the sports violence, you would see an impact in the NFL within a generation. Now, I know it, you're probably sports fans and football fans, but what I want you to understand here, and the point is, you have a voice and it's in your wallet. Use it. It is a fact that women in America could not get their own checking account without a male cosigner until 1974. That's right. With the passage of the Equal Credit Opportunity Act, women could finally get credit cards, a checking account, and something so valuable, a mortgage, without a male cosigner in 1974. That's not a verbal typo. It was only 50 years ago that those of you listening today could have the same access to financial tools that men have had in our nation for over 200 years. The long-term risk for women financially when they are tethered to a man are many. These women lack credit history of their own, severely limiting their ability to get in a home, get money for school, buy a car. The lack of experience in the financial world make these women easy targets for predatory practices like payday loans, atrociously high interest rates, and term loans on cars, in schools, or a home that are by far greater than their male counterparts. As a matter of fact, here in Dallas, where I live, there's a wealthy area that I won't name. It's not a very well-kept secret that women who live there are often in the process of joining the First Wives clubs, as their husbands trade them in for a younger version. I was told by a woman one time that many of these women will buy expensive clothes and take them with the tags on to one of the very high-end consignment stores so they could receive the cash to pad their bank accounts so they know that they will have money when they are cut off after divorce. It's real. And last, let's talk about the physical threats. It's certainly not least. From the New Lines magazine article, The American War on Women, when men feel superior to women, empowered by culture and the law, or lack thereof, violence and bloodshed follows. Silence equals death, literally. Instances of rape and sexual violence against women are on the rise. And if you want to be protected against rape, don't think for a minute men in power have any intent in helping. Here are two shining examples of toxic male patriarchy at work and why you should be worried, if not for yourself, but for your daughters. I'm going to quote this. Just don't have sex if you don't want to have a baby. That an impassioned young woman outside the Supreme Court in June in 2022. If all women had that choice, that would be great. In fact, sexual assault occurs every 68 seconds on average in the U.S. 1 of every 6 American women has been the victim of attempted or a completed rape. This is a number that is probably actually much higher. This is what's reported. If the woman has the right to an abortion, why shouldn't a man be free to use his superior strength and force himself on a woman? At least the rapist's pursuit of sexual freedom doesn't, in most cases, result in anyone's death. That statement right there was made by Lawrence Lockman, a Republican senator. When we have those kind of statements said by people in power, it erodes women's health and puts our physical body at risk. The evidence demonstrates that in most countries, a violent partner who threatens rape and impregnation is unlikely to face any consequences. In the U.S., the Supreme Court has now hugely amplified the coercive power of this threat. In the chilling words of the dissenting justice, from the very moment of fertilization, a woman has no right to speak of. A state can force her to bring a pregnancy to term, even at the steepest personal and family costs. If every time a man had sex, they risked death, physical disability, social shunning, and life-altering interruptions to their education and career, and the sudden lifelong responsibility for another human being, I think they'd expect a choice in the matter. Sexual violence against women is nothing new. Courtney Love put it best. If she was asking for it, did she ask you twice? Think for a second about the names we have given to the act of women being beaten by their partners. Something as seemingly insignificant as a word, in actuality, is not insignificant at all. Words define actions. First, it was battery, then domestic violence, then intimate partner violence, and most recently, intimate terrorism. This could just as easily be seen as a cultural or institutional threat, as these are just euphemisms adopted by male-centric culture for rape, assault, battery, and violence towards women who are viewed as something less than, or dogs and pigs, in the words of former President Trump. By dragging their feet on reauthorizing the Violence Against Women Act, politicians have played politics with women's safety, leaving survivors of domestic violence and sexual assault and stalking in perilous limbo without critical legal protections and support services. Just like the Crusades or the Inquisition or the witch trials or the genocide of Indigenous Americans and Indigenous people all over the world in the name of God's destiny, women are now firmly in those crosshairs. It has become time for us to be armed, trained, courageous, and organized before all hope is lost forever. I'll address one more issue that I find quite dangerous. The current Republican vice president candidate seeks to eliminate no-fault divorce. No-fault divorce allows a woman to divorce a man without question. This will force women to stay in abusive relationships that often end up in death for the woman and can swallow up the children as well. This is forced subjugation, slavery, and violence. If history has taught us anything about what will follow, it is that what happens in America has a ripple effect across the world. If America no longer protects a woman's right in health care, it won't be long before other parts of the world follow, one way or another. It may not be about abortion per se, but normalizing such an attitude in the United States enables other forms of anti-women sentiment everywhere. For one, America can no longer hold the rest of the world accountable for laws that they are abusing against women. If we no longer have bodily autonomy as women in the freest part of the world, then God help us all. Against this type of treatment in women is nothing new, but it has taken a dramatic turn in recent years with a large segment of the American population believing it's okay to treat women this way. Remember, at the witch trials, they didn't burn witches, they burned women. At a debate between the candidates running for U.S. Senate in Texas recently, it was brought up that it is not pro-life to deny a woman medical care so long as it makes her unable to ever have a children again. It is not pro-life to force a woman to carry her rapist baby. It is not pro-life to have a state, Texas where I live, with a female mortality rate that has increased 56% and an infant mortality rate that had risen in tandem. Women and babies are dying. It's not about the children either. It's about controlling women. If it were about the children, then we would have school lunch programs in every school. Moms would get free prenatal care and the proper amount of maternal leave. And gun violence would not kill more children in America than cancer or car wrecks combined. It's not about the kids. It's about controlling women. The rhetoric on both sides of many issues often verges on hyperbole, but it has reached a point where the threats of sexual violence, like what Elon Musk said about putting a baby into Taylor Swift, have become so normalized, accepted in routine, and institutionalized that the only way to solve this problem is to fight back. Literally, fight back. Their goal is for women to be seen as property, no different than a head of cattle, whose worth is only for the benefit of the owner. Men don't walk around with mace on their keychains to protect themselves from women or other men. Men don't worry about what may be in their drink that they get at a bar. Men aren't afraid to go to a jog in the dark before work. Men don't think twice about getting into a rideshare vehicle. Why? Because men are always safe. Men are never threatened because they are men. Do not sit idly by and hope someone else will take care of it, or it's none of your business, or there's no point, or it's too big to do anything about to make a difference, or it doesn't affect me, or whatever excuse you may have. Eventually, they will come for you too, unless you choose to resist. So here's the thing, ladies. Throughout this talk, I've used the term them frequently. In the vast majority of cases, them is referring to men. But women are also involved in the suppression of women as well. A classic example is Phyllis Schlafly, famously fought against equal rights because she felt it would erode the perks women got in every day, like having a door opened for them, being seated first at the dinner table, being given a seat on a crowded bus. Those things, while nice, can be obtained by anyone at any time simply by being around good people. It's not a gender-specific issue to be kind to others. That is manners, courtesy, and respect. Elderly people, soldiers in uniform, people on crutches or wheelchairs all benefit from those same acts of decency. Phyllis turned it into a war among women centered around gender roles. So be aware that there are women out there who do not want women to succeed, to be heard, to have access to what they most likely already have access to due to wealth, family, or privilege. These women support keeping the rest of women down because it increases their influence, wealth, and power by doing so. The same way being denied entry into exclusive club makes the ones inside feel special. What we are talking about here, though, isn't tea times and swim-up bars. We are talking about worth, value, respect, safety, and basic human rights. These same people who subjugate women do so to keep powerful men in control, to become more powerful and more wealthy. Look back at any authoritarian regime, Stalin, Pol Pot, Nicholas Ceausescu, who also banned abortion in his country, Hitler, the Taliban, and the family of Saud. All of these authoritarian governments attacked education, intellectuals, because they knew that people who think are a danger to those who wish to remain in control. The same reason they want women at home, pregnant, with a baby in one arm, a serving spoon in the other, and a pile of laundry to be folded. We are easy to control that way. We are easier to keep out of business that way. We are easier to keep out of college that way. We are easier to keep unemployed and financially dependent on somebody else that way. The gaslighting is more effective when women are kept in these situations as well. All a man has to say is, "That's crazy, honey. I'm out there every day working, and I don't see or hear of anything that you're describing. You watch way too much left-wing media or fake news or listen to whatever Taylor Swift says or whatever version of that there is." They don't want women who question, challenge, and think critically. African American women see it. They are currently the largest demographic enrolling and graduating from college because they know the way out of whatever they are in is education, and they no longer want their life to be subjugated. We've touched on a lot of things today from all over the world that prove beyond a doubt that there is a war on women worldwide. But since most of my listeners are here in the US, this is what's coming for you. To be foretold is to be forewarned. Your life is at stake. Your daughter's life, your granddaughter's life, and autonomy are at stake. Here's the thing. We outnumber them. We outwork them. We outthink them. We have more endurance. We're able to mentally handle stress better. We can juggle more tasks. We are more decisive, more patient. We are more persistent. We are more forgiving, but we never forget. Betray our trust at your own peril. Those of you who seek to keep us down, push us out, marginalize us, and assault us daily, for we are coming at you in legions, not seen before. At the end of the day, at the end of the fight, the glory will go to the ruthless, merciless, the unforgiving, just as has been done to women. So will be done to the perpetrators of misogyny, institutional violence, physical violence, systemic segregation, neglect, assault, disrespect, and theft. The day will be ours, ladies. There will be pain, there will be loss, there will be suffering, but we will rule by the end. This is intended to scare you. This is really intended to make you mad. This is intended to make you want to get involved, to fight, and to fight back, and to push those who seek to destroy you and those like you, because that's what they fear most. And so many people may listen to this and think it's a political discussion. Politics are definitely at play here. Regardless of party, the war on women is a man's war against women. It doesn't matter what politics you are in, what side of the fence you're on. This is a women's right issue. And so I want you to think very long and hard about what you want your daughters and granddaughters' lives to be, because the erosion we see today will continue if we don't do something about it. So thank you for listening to Menopause Mastery. I know that this was a hard discussion, and I felt it was a really important discussion, and I wanted to make sure that I got that off my chest. So thank you for listening to Menopause Mastery, and I'll be back with some science next week. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Menopause Mastery podcast. You are why I'm here, and I am so very grateful. Hit subscribe so you don't miss any wisdom on creating the most exceptional life on our terms. If this episode has helped you in any way, please share it with a friend to spread the love, and together we rise. You can follow me on social media at Betty Murray, PhD, and you can reach me online at bettymurray.com.